Hello, my name is Harlan Lane and I'm speaking to you today from Northeastern University in Boston. I'd like to speak with you about the topic of deaf ethnicity. Our time's limited now, so I refer you to the book I published with Ulf Hedberg and Richard Pillard called The People of the Eye, Deaf Ethnicity and Ancestry. I hope if this interests you, you'll look there for more information. Scholarly research has revealed American Sign Language to be a full-fledged natural language. It's unrelated to English for the most part, and it has a unique grammar. Not surprisingly, since all languages have these traits, American Sign Language has rich art forms. There are legends, plays, poetry, narratives, humor, and much more. Research has shown that the users of the language, of ASL, are members of a tight-knit social structure: political, social, educational, athletic, and religious too. And ASL users share a culture with characteristic customs, values, and knowledge. The culture and the language have, sad to say, a well-documented history of oppression, one that extends easily back to the Enlightenment, the 1700s in Europe. We refer to the members of this culture as deaf, and to the culture itself as the deaf world. Those are English glosses on the signs that members of the deaf world use to refer to themselves and the deaf world. American Sign Language is the primary language of a large number of Americans. Nobody knows the exact count, but somewhere between 500,000 and 1 million is often used as a guide. Now, despite all this evidence, and there's lots more in the book, a number of scholars have brought forth objections to deaf ethnicity. I've picked out a few, and I'm going to show that they are flawed. The first objection concerns deaf bodies. Here's the challenge. All the members of the deaf world have a disability. No ethnic group is like that, so the deaf world is not an ethnic group. Now, to examine that line of reasoning, we need to recognize that ethnic groups frequently have distinctive physical correlates, as do the members of the deaf world. We have something to learn from the Pygmies of Central Africa, whose ethnicity incorporates a distinctive trait, namely their short height, only 4.5 feet on the average. The Pygmies' physical makeup and their circumstances are perfectly married. It would be a mistake to consider them handicapped and to inject growth hormone every day, a practice which is followed with short children. Because of the Pygmies' short stature, they get by with fewer calories. They can build small temporary huts quickly, and they can move through the jungle underbrush quickly in search of game. Interestingly, Pygmies hunt wild game together using nets. Their customs and values are communal, which reflects the collaborative hunt, and that in turn reflects the Pygmies' physical makeup and environment. Do Pygmies have a disadvantage in their small size? Of course not. They have an advantage. Now, there are Bantu villagers living and farming at the edges of the Pygmy forest. They have contempt for the Pygmies because of their puny size. And the Pygmies, in turn, have contempt for them, whom they mock as clumsy elephants that could not survive in the forest because they can't move in the underbrush, and they're tall, and they make a lot of noise. The Pygmies call the Bantus elephants, because like an elephant, they make a racket. Each ethnic group considers the other to have a handicap in the physical size. The puny Pygmies, according to the Bantus, and the elephant-like Bantus, according to the Pygmies. So each fails to appreciate that physical makeup culture and environment go together. That's to be noted when it comes to height differences between these two groups. These are a central ethnic fact. However, height differences within ethnic groups are quite a different matter. If you are abnormally short for your ethnic group, your height is likely to be seen as a disability. Indeed, a large number of putatively short children are receiving injections of growth hormone every day in the United States and Great Britain, among other countries. So the deaf world is an ethnic group, and ethnic groups frequently have physical correlates. Taking height as an example of a physical correlate, we find between group differences, like the Pygmies and the Bantus, and also within group differences. A person with a large in-group difference, a large distance from the norm, is seen as having a disability. Now, for the members of the deaf world, reliance on vision is a physical correlate of their ethnicity. Members of the deaf world have no hearing loss, just as Pygmies have no height loss. Members of the deaf world have no disability, just an ethnic difference. People in other ethnic groups who have difficulty hearing, such as late deafened Americans, were generally acculturated to hearing culture before they became deaf. So they differ from the mean auditory threshold in their ethnic group and are seen as having a disability. Indeed, late deafened people's own view is that they have a disability. The second challenge to our view supporting deaf ethnicity concerns acculturation. Here's the challenge. A deaf child is not ethnically deaf until he or she learns the language and culture of the deaf world, whereas children from ethnic groups are part of the group from birth. Therefore, the deaf world is not an ethnic group. We disagree. Consider how members of ethnic groups are identified. In Western cultures, at least, we see the newborn as launched on a trajectory that, depending on the child's makeup and environment, will lead him or her to master a language and culture. It is this potentiality in the newborn Native American child, for example, that leads us to say that the newborn child is Native American, not will be Native American, even though the child is too young to have acquired the language and culture that go with ethnic assignment. In saying that this newborn is African American, for example, we don't need to ask about the parents. White adoptive parents or surrogate mothers may be Caucasian, and their African American child is still an African American child. Some years ago, the National Association of Black Social Workers came out formally against programs of transracial adoption, where well-meaning middle-class Americans from the central states systematically were adopting these children despite the mismatch in their racial assignment, in their ethnic assignment. The social workers came out against this because they said the children were being deprived of their black heritage, even though these were very young children and had yet not acquired any language and culture. And black culture was being deprived of its new members, and that's ethnocide, the systematic extinction of an ethnic minority's freedom to pursue its own way. Many of these adoptive black children were too young to have learned black dialect or culture, but it was clear to everyone that they were ethnically black. If that wasn't the case, then why would the National Association of Black Social Workers protest? So it was clear to all that their life trajectories would lead them to black culture and dialect. So the deaf child of hearing parents, like the deaf child of deaf parents, is ethnically deaf right from the start, from birth or from the moment that he or she has the potential to thrive in an ASL environment. Deaf adults say that such an early or at birth deaf child has deaf eyes. No doubt they refer to the deaf child's characteristic visual scanning of the environment. A little later in life, these children will also look deaf because they communicate manually, use codified facial gestures, respond readily to visual events and not auditory ones, and so on. So, just as the physical difference of the Pygmies goes hand in hand with their ethnicity, so the child who is born deaf or early becomes deaf is a member of the deaf world, and that child's life trajectory will normally assure that he or she acquires a sign language and deaf ethnicity. So, just like the Native American child, the ethnic assignment is made at birth. The deaf child can be deprived of the opportunity to acculturate to the deaf world, just as parents of transracial adoption sometimes say, this boy is my child now, I've adopted him, and he's not black except in his skin color, but he has no ethnic obligation or connection with the ethnic group from which his ancestry comes. You can deprive that child of the chance to acculturate, but if you don't intercede, the normal course is for a child in an ethnic group to become a full-blown member of the ethnic group. So we consider the child with the ethnic difference as deaf, black, or Native American right from the start. That explains why members of those ethnicities feel a strong emotional investment in the child, physically like themselves, and why they identify and empathize with them even when they're not related to them. So the argument that we'll worry about the child's sign language or the child's implant or the various interventions later on when the child is a teenager and we can see what the ethnic assignment is, that isn't the way we really talk about ethnic assignment. If your child is black for whatever reason, he's a black child. And if your child is deaf, for whatever reason, he's a deaf child, or she. The third challenge concerns socialization. The challenge. Children in ethnic groups are socialized by blood relatives, their parents. But most children in the deaf world are not socialized by a blood relative, so the deaf world is not an ethnic group. But we disagree. In many ethnic groups, children are not socialized by their blood relatives. I'll give two examples. So the fact that deaf children are commonly socialized by deaf peers and deaf adults is not an obstacle to seeing these children as members of an ethnic group. I'll name two cultures among many where the people who count as your parents are those who have socialized you, not necessarily those who gave birth to you. In Langkawi, Langkawi, a Malaysian archipelago, mothers often feed their biological children along with unrelated adoptive children. So powerful is the adoptive mother's role in socialization that she becomes the true mother of them all. All her children, biological and adoptive, are seen as brothers and sisters. None of them is allowed to marry any other, as that would be seen as incest. The unrelated children are even said to resemble the mother. So for those children, as for the deaf children of hearing parents, ethnic socialization is carried out by someone unrelated to them, and that's not an obstacle to seeing deaf ethnicity. The second example concerns the Yao people of southwestern China. They adopt many non-Yao children. These adopted children are seen as related to the people who raised them in all respects. They even participate in many rituals of the Yao ethnic group, including ancestor worship, even though they have different ancestors. So the deaf world is one of these ethnic groups where children are socialized by adults and peers who are not related to them. And that's not an obstacle to seeing deaf ethnicity. According to many deaf scholars, the deaf world is seeking integration with a measure of autonomy. And that's just what all these other ethnic groups are seeking. Be they Hispanic in the United States, be they Yao in China, be they deaf. The ethnic group wants the preservation of its ethnicity. People feel good about their ethnic ties in general. They can put down roots. In a society that's increasingly depersonalizing for us in the Western world, there's an anchor to personal values, to personal likeness, to shared language, and so on. So that's a great source of richness for individuals and for the nation at large. So the deaf world, by many deaf scholars, are seeking participation in mainstream society, but with the preservation of their ethnic identity. The route to successful participation in society cannot be the denial of one's own identity. Deaf scholar Tom Humphreys is among those who've expressed this deaf wish for autonomy and integration, both. He writes, deaf people have a vision of integration that is different from what hearing people envision for them. Deaf people see grounding in the culture and the sign language of the deaf community in which they live as the most important factor in their lives. Integration comes more easily and more effectively from those roots. End quote. Thank you.